Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people, shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution. This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution.
All grit.
All right, what's happening, Detroit Lions fans? Man, we wanted to get in tonight. We're way late, but we wanted to get on tonight and at least talk about a topic, a big topic, and that is Detroit Lions Super Bowl or bust. We don't normally come on at 8 o'clock, but we wanted to get on, 7:30, but we had some issues. But thank goodness we got Riley's audio figured out so that we could do this. We'll probably have a very, very light crew. Looks like we got one person in the house, and that's Mike P, but let me get Riley in. And we'll wait until we get some more people in. We'll just kind of chitter chat for a minute and see how it rolls. What's happening, Riley?
All right, are we in? Can you hear me?
We're in. We can hear you, and I think you're good. Actually, I gotta double check it, but we're not gonna have a ton of people in. Like I said, we jumped into this way late tonight, totally unscheduled.
Yeah, we showed up late, but we're here. I'll tell you, man. The moment you start trying to do this podcasting stuff and you do it with somebody like Will, you quickly realize there's a lot of things that you don't podcasting stuff. No. And you do it with somebody like Will, you quickly realize there's a lot of things that you don't podcasting stuff. No. And you do it with somebody like Will. Is that you?
Fortunately, my phone is connected.
Oh, right.
It's double plane. Let me disconnect it. You see? We got the G word in here, but keep on going. My bad.
Yeah, no, you're good. There's always something, but yeah, I mean, it helps to have somebody that kind of knows the ropes, and it can be painstaking at times, but we figured it out. So I was in briefly this morning, and was in and out. Wasn't able to get my audio sorted out, but we've got it situated out now. So I think we should be good to go. Let's see.
Yeah, we're good. And I just double checked your audio is good. So at least the first part of this was at least getting your audio fixed. And sometimes it takes going live just to make sure. All right, I'm going to disconnect YouTube from my phone. Wanted to take phone calls tonight. I do want to hear from you people. It's been a long time since we've been taking some phone calls. And I want to take some, like I said, we're not going to have a ton of people in. Maybe we should have just done members only tonight. But it was very late that we planned on doing this. So.
Now, through conversation, Will, it seems like, and maybe as we get going with the season, do you think the evening shows might be a thing that we possibly work in as a regular?
Oh, no, yeah, they have to.
Got it.
There's going to be a new schedule popping here soon because I don't think I'm going to be able to do the morning show every day, at least for about, until training camp starts.
Mm-hmm.
That way I can get some stuff done around the house. We got a lot of stuff to do. To get this house ready to go and move on to the next phase of our life. So there's just I need time. I need time at home. So any hours that I can get back in the day are helpful. So it's just one of those things that has to get done. But anyway, we've got 16, 20, 30 people in. I don't even know how many people in right now. Here's what I'd like to do, man. I wanted to talk about a topic that's been on my mind for a while. Let me get this mic out of my face. And that's Super Bowl or bust, man. It's something you hear, people talk about all the time. What are the Lions going to do this year? And does it mean that this is the next step, right, in their evolution? Is they've got to get to that Lombardi. And I'll be, before I even go into the entire topic, Riley, if the Lions make it to the Super Bowl and lose, are you okay?
It's a great question. I don't know that I will be. I think I'll have to be, but I think it was a little bit like what it was in the NFC Championship game. Although for me, it kind of felt like you were playing with house money a little bit that year. The whole second half was like a blur to me. And I just, it was easy for me to say, what, I'm damn proud of this team, but I feel like we're past that. And I think now the expectation is Super Bowl and getting there. It's all about luck to get to the playoffs, make it to the conference finals, get into the Super Bowl. Losing would be probably the biggest gut punch possible in my football fandom of 36 years now.
Yeah, I think so too. But honestly, my answer is I would be okay. And the only reason why I say that, yeah, I'd probably have a lot to say and I'd be pretty beat up about it, but it's that next step. At least get there and feel it, I mean, I'm not going to feel comfortable wasting 10 grand on a ticket or something and then watching them lose. But yeah, let's talk about it. It's Super Bowl or bust tonight. And I got to say, man, your video is starting to look crisp. What started out as Riley had pretty terrible video. He's put some bucks into this, man. He's got a good camera, and he's got that little backdrop you got going with that light is starting to work. You got that dialed in. So it's looking good, man. You've come a long way. Now I've got to level up, and I'm going to have to get the camera, which is the last thing that I really wanted to purchase. I was kind of waiting for the next evolution of those lenses, and I think we're there. I think there's some pretty good cameras out now that I think it's time at some point this year I actually get a camera. We have plenty of cameras here. It's just they don't really work for podcasting because they overheat, and that's the last thing I want,
Oh, it'll be, your setup's great as is. So once you we'll get that and be dialed in. That's one thing I'm proud of to be part of Rockhound Detroit Lions is, never mind the personal stuff. It's helped me a bunch and added a ton of value to my life. But yeah, I thought when I was interviewing Will back in the day for a podcast, I was, felt like I had a great mic. I felt like I was like, all right, this is good. And little did I know, but Will's been helpful and trying to get up to speed with things. And it's been great. Being on the show in the mornings has been phenomenal. And then doing this tonight, it's great. And how great is it to talk about our team and genuinely say Super Bowl or bust?
We have arrived, man. We're there.
We're there.
The Lions are there. And I think that this is going to be the season that we see it.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I said was the year. And man, did I think that we were headed there because the team was right. I think that, Ben coming back, AG coming back, everybody coming back,
mm-hmm.
Brad doing the things that he does in the offseason. And I think we were there. I think that there was more opportunity last year for us to take it all the way. And then it was that dreaded curse that just seems like it just hangs in the balance somewhere in a closet in Allen Park or at Ford Field. And then when the Lions are about to do great things, it's like, oh, hey, I'm back. And you're going to suffer injuries all season. Forget it. You're too good. You can't be too good in Detroit. We're going to have to dial this back a little bit. Well, that's not going to happen this year. It's just not. I think it's highly improbable. I mean, if we were to get a mathematician on here, probabilities expert, they would tell us it is highly improbable for the Lions to have happen what happened last year happen again. It's more probable that it happens to the offense this time. Like that's nuts to even think about that it could happen to the offense versus the defense again, because nothing happened to the offense last year. Minor stuff, right? So, all right, let's get into it. The phone lines will be open. I do want to take some calls. We're going to get through a couple of topics, and you guys better call. Like, I want to hear from some Lions fans tonight about this topic. I think that it is, I think it's important. But anyway, before we do, let's give a big shout out to the people in the chat. Trace is in the house, as usual. Who kicked us off tonight? Mike P kicked us off tonight. Mike, if you're not first, you're last. You were first tonight, man. Congratulations.
Love it.
J-Rod's in the house. J-Rod, by the way, there was a couple of names in the Voxer, so we've got to get you the link back. But I was a little worried because there was a couple of J-Rods in there, and I don't know why. So I got rid of both of them. So we've got to get you back into the Voxer chat. I'll put a new link in the members chat only for you tonight. Kevin Barr, what's happening? Kevin, did you get your package yet? Who else in here? David Lyons, hey, long time no see. Good to see you in here. Let's see. Warner U of M Dad, did you get your package yet? Brandy, your package is in the mail. Matter of fact, it went out today. I totally forgot yesterday. It's in the mail. I sent you an email.
In the midst of all the yard work, you still managed to find a way to fire off some packages.
Dude, like, you have no idea what I did today. I went and rented a Thatcher. So, like, I pride myself. I'm one of the lawn guys. Like, you know, I'm a lawn dad. You know, you got to have the best lawn on the block.
I can see that.
Well, during the whole cancer thing, the lawn kind of got sacrificed a little bit because it's a lot of work. And when you have over, you know, almost 3/4 of an acre to mow, like, it's not just field, it's mowable grass. That's a ton of work. You know, you're talking thousands of dollars in chemicals and you know, trees. I mean, you name it that I've put up. It's a lot of work. So it's time to get it back just in time to sell it, right? So
that's all part of it, right?
9 33-gallon bags of just thatch today. And I still got to do it again in the morning. And I'll probably get another 9 bags.
I'll bet it looks sweet, though. I bet it's a good-looking yard.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. That's for sure. All right. For the last time, it is Super Bowl or bust. I want to bring in my topics tonight, some questions, some things that were kind of on my mind. And we're just going to talk through it. And if you guys want to participate, obviously in the chat, go for it. And then I want to take some phone calls, and I'll let you know, I guess, when I want to take some phone calls so that we can kind of talk about these topics. Give us 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll start taking calls at 8:30. So
Perfect.
15 topics, 15 reasons. Some of them kind of blend together. But why is it Super Bowl or bust for the Detroit Lions? Now, here's my first one. And it's honestly that it's labeled why 2025 is the moment, the facts and the analysis that I been putting together. Number one, and I think that this is something we all understand. Money doesn't grow on trees. The cap window slams shut in 2026. You know, everyone's been talking about a window, right? And I started thinking, what window are they talking about? They say Super Bowl window is open. What does that even mean? Right? And so to myself, I'm thinking, you know, there is a window. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a Super Bowl window, but it's a financial window. And this window is for every team, especially the contenders, the teams that are doing really well. And for me, it's Detroit Lions enjoying, you know, a league high 40.1 million of cap space right now. But they have some exploding deals for Goff, soon to be Hutchinson, but Penei Sewell, St. Brown, Aleem McNeil, and that is going to flip the Lions to about a negative 54 million in 2026. Cap management. It can keep this band together for another year. But after that, man, we've got some painful cuts coming in or some restructures that are just unavoidable. And I think restructure is a big word. I think it is the word. And I think Jared Goff better swallow that pill, because if he wants this team to be able to take it to the next step. If they, for some reason, fall short this season, he better be thinking of restructuring that contract next year. Well, this band is getting broken up. There's just no two ways to slice the pie any differently, right? You just can't. So I guess that's the first topic. It's the cap. So, I mean, Riley, how important is it, I guess, how do you view this cap situation where we have Jamison Williams, Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, who am I missing? Well, Aiden Hutchinson still left to do. I think I mentioned Jamison.
Brian Branch.
Yeah, Gibbs. I mean, you've got all of those guys that need contracts next year. And then you don't know what's going to happen with some of the other guys that we'll talk about in a minute. But you have all these guys that need deals. Are they going to get deals in Detroit? And this is what I call the cap window. It's not a Super Bowl window. It's a cap window.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see this boiling down for the Lions?
I think that's a great way to put it, because what you always hear is, if you're hearing like a Super Bowl window, it's the idea really is, hey, we got a rookie quarterback or a quarterback on a rookie contract, so we have all the other talent around him. The thing that's different in Detroit is you don't generally have that good of draft classes as Brad Holmes has had. And so you're right. It's kind of a inverse of it where the quarterback's got a big contract, but all the other talent, as you said, is they're on discounts. They're at cheaper prices at the moment. So you're right. Super Bowl window, I mean, you can be 9-8 now and barely make it and get into the Super Bowl and go all the way, but it just doesn't happen as often that you have this good of draft classes where now, I mean, there is so much talent on this roster. And you're right. At some point, it's going to start to break up for financial reasons. So I think it's a great point. There you have this window of time right now where you've gotten paid this much and you've got paid this much. Okay, but at some point, guys are going to want raises, and they're going to deserve those raises, and you have to make tough decisions.
Yeah, you're exactly right, man. My back is killing me.
So is Brad Holmes.
Yeah, I know. I read that or heard that when we were discussing that this morning. I'm like, yeah, my back too. And it's funny because I'm bending over to throw some grass matter into a bag, and I'm like, I got to squat. And I'm thinking, Brad Holmes, he's squatting too.
Yep.
It's kind of funny that it popped in my head earlier today. All right, so yeah, I agree, right? I mean, you've got this window. It is a superficial window. I feel like contracts in the NFL are big fugazis, right? They're myths. You can always do something at some point to make some room, and for other teams that operate in the negative every year, find a way to make it happen the next year, but they lose a lot of football players. The Lions have yet to run a deficit during a league year. They have yet to open a season with a deficit. It's incredible to think about that, right? I mean, Brad Holmes bringing in these players, and you've got some SOL fans over there bitching and complaining about defensive ends, yet look at the situation that the Lions are in. You can't have a team any more loaded than it is right now. Given the situation that the Lions are in cap-wise right now we're starting to be up against it. And you know what? All of those other teams that are pretty good, they break up. The Super Bowl winning Eagles, man, totally reset their team. Right? And we're going to talk about that in a second. But let me get into the second one here. I'm allergic to dust too, so you can imagine I'm out there doing the lawn and stuff. I'm literally allergic to dust. That has got to be the worst thing in the world. I guess it's not as bad as being allergic to cotton or something, because then you'd what would you wear?
Right.
You just walk around nude all day, I guess. All right, so Goff's, this is my second one. Goff's friendly-ish money. It ends. Like the Lions they struck gold with Jared Goff's contract. I couldn't believe that I saw people bitching about Jared Goff's contract in 2022 and in 2023 and in 2024. And even now, like, it's $33 million a year, and you've been complaining about that. It was $28 million not too long ago, and now you're complaining about that too? Well, next year it's like 76 million or whatever. It's a huge number. That friendly-ish money is gone. The quarterback, Jared Goff, his cap number manageable at 32.6 million in 25, doubles in 2026 to 69.6 million. The title run before Goff's contract becomes almost unmanageable and a roster building handcuff. It's kind of the logical play, right? You've got to go all in to a degree, but that doesn't mean go all in for an edge because it just wouldn't work. You heard Brad Holmes again today verify and validate the work that we do here because we're right in line with everything that Brad Holmes has been doing. The difference is we say it way before he does it. And so now we're up against it with Goff's contract. What do you think about Jared Goff? You know, I put that out there, that topic the other day about Jared Goff. And does he retire a Lion? When do the Lions start looking at the replacement? And I was talking about Drew Aller the other day because I view him as almost like a Josh Allen, right? Almost. Drew Aller, Josh Allen. Very similar quarterbacks. Also a little bit of Jared Goff in them. At what point are you going hunting for a quarterback and trading Jared Goff at the peak of his career?
It's a great question. And I love the video that you did. And, you know, Drew Aller is somebody I've heard of. The breakdown starts to make sense. And then you start thinking about, okay, would you rather have Drew Aller and all these other players, or do you want to keep Goff in town? That kind of leads right into your point. If he wins the Super Bowl this year, I think, yeah, it's almost a given. You retire as a Lion. He turns 31 this year in October. If you look at 31 years old, he still would have 6 seasons, maybe 7 seasons. And in some ways, the game just slows down and gets easier for him. So I think it's a huge thing. If they win a Super Bowl this year, he can kind of dictate what he does from there on. If they lose, if a catastrophe happens, they miss the playoffs or something, the questions are going to start being asked because you're going to hate to lose a lot of these other guys and keep Goff. But the only thing with the quarterback I always come back to is when you don't have a quarterback that's worthy of that big contract, you want a quarterback that's worthy of that big contract. You want a guy that you feel like this is one of the top 5 guys in this league. And we've had a lot of discussions about, is Goff one of those guys? So I think we'll find out this year. If he wins a Super Bowl this year, he's top 5. And some argue that he is right now.
I think he's a top 5 quarterback. That's not an argument that I would even, I don't know. Look, Jared has done a ton with less, right? You could say last year he finally had a really complete offense. 2 backs, at least 2 wide receivers, star-studded offensive line. He finally had a complete offense. And look what he did with it. Almost 7,000 yards. What was it? 37 or how many touchdowns did he have? 37, 39, 49, 42, something like that.
It was 37. And the thing that when we were talking about at the morning show with Joe Burrow, having that discussion, the thing that you said that I've thought about probably every day since was 5 of his interceptions came in one game. If you take that, and the Lions won the game.
Exactly.
So if you take that away, I'm like, damn, he had 7 interceptions outside of the one game where he had 5. I mean, that's very, obviously, that's very, very efficient.
He is very efficient. And I'd say that, Jared Goff's a top 5 quarterback simply because of what he's been able to do with this team. I mean, for God's sakes, he has come to Detroit and turned this city around. Or, the football, this is a football city. I'm not even going to play games with this. Detroit has been a football city from day one, right? It's always been a football city. The Tigers they've had more success, with the championships that they've won and some of the teams that they put together. The Red Wings had success for like 22 years straight. And so many would say that it's a hockey town, right? It's a hockey city. It's always been a football city. And what I mean by that is the fans, they live, eat, and breathe football. So it's a Lombardi walking through Brush Street or Woodward or wherever the parade goes, it's going to be one of the biggest and best parades ever for a Super Bowl. It is a football city. All right, next thing. And this one to me is extremely important. We're talking about the prime age. And I'm not talking about a really good cut of beef here. But I'm talking about the prime age core that your football squad is, in prime position to win football games and play at their best, their peak level. And that's what we're talking about. So prime age core and peak performance curve. St. Brown, 25. Sewell, I think he's 25 now. Hutchinson, is he 25? I think he's 25 or about to be. Gibbs is 23. All of these guys are in physical prime shape, with rookie scale or front-loaded extensions. And, other than St. Brown, like his is front-loaded, right? It's kind of back-loaded to a degree, not really front-loaded. But championships kind of correlate strongly with cores aged between 24 and 28 years old. By 2026, the cap crush really forces the roster to churn, right? A lot of churn and burn, as they call it. But the research that I did, again, I'm going to point back to it, that strongly correlate between an age of 24 to 28. And that's exactly where the Lions are right now. So when people crush Brad Holmes because he's not out there bringing in Trey Hendrickson or bringing in, all of these other football players that cost an arm and a leg, go back and look at how old they are. Brad wants second contract guys, and that's exactly what I've been in line with day one as well. You want second contract guys to lead this team, but you need them at very specific positions at specific times. And the rest of the roster needs to be a little bit younger. So if your core age, your median age is 26 years old, this roster is in prime position right now. It's not going to go much longer, with these guys in their prime condition. How many more years is St. Brown going to be able to put up 1,000 plus? How many more years is Sewell going to be able to play, 17 games, open and close, 1,000 snaps a season? Remember, he started at a very young age. He entered the league at, I think, 21 years old or 20 years old, very young for an offensive tackle in the NFL. Aiden Hutchinson, he's about to enter his prime. Gibbs hasn't even sniffed it yet. He entered the league almost in prime shape. But imagine where he's going to be when he's in his prime. He might be knocking 2,000 yards down every year. So this is kind of the window, man. This is the second window you could talk about, and that's the prime age core for these guys. For the team to develop and be able to play at their peak level. How do you think that affects this team moving forward? And more importantly, the roster. And then I would love to take some phone calls if some people want to talk in to kind of discuss these first three topics.
When I was listening to Brad Holmes and the interview he did yesterday with, was it Chris Long, Kyle Long? I think he was talking about Aleem McNeil, and he's talking about how when I called him to say, hey, man, during the draft, you ready to be a Lion? He was just like, yeah, let's do it. And then when he gave him his extension, he was like, all right, cool. Yeah, let's do it. And Brad Holmes made a specific point to mention that Aleem's attitude and energy and emotion and disposition was exactly what it was when he drafted him. And I think that when Brad Holmes is saying that, it's kind of like a proud father moment. He wants to draft guys that he can give the second contract to, because obviously that validates your decision to draft them. And it means that they've played and performed well. That's how you build a culture. When the guys all get to training camp next month, it's a bunch of familiar faces. Yeah, there's some new guys. That happens every year. But for the most part, it's a bunch of returning faces. And so when we lost to Washington, that was brutal. But there was no doubt in my mind, like, all right, they'll be back. It didn't feel like, man, that was it. The boat sailed now. The ship sailed. No. I think they'll be right back. May not win 15 games, but I think that they will be right back. And the age, as you're talking about, we've got a roster with a ton of guys in their prime or arguably in their prime. You've got to capitalize on that when you have that opportunity.
I would agree. And again, it's another situation that this team is in when you're looking at, facing the music of of doing a really good job, right? I mean, Brad has done an exceptional job at putting together a team. I mean, I call it roster gymnastics, and then, the big phase is the roster roulette. How are you able to backfill some of these bigger contracts and, bigger football, bigger players on your team that at some point you've got to get a guy that's a little bit younger, a little bit more hungry, and definitely a lot less cap space being taken up. And that's kind of where we are. Jared Goff's big contract, talking about the cap window is slamming shut right now. The Goff's friendly money, it ends. I mean, this is it. Next year, you're looking at a huge chunk of change. And this prime age beef that we have on this roster, these guys are ready to go. I'll move on to the next one. This is one that we can all assimilate with, and that is back-to-back division crowns really raise the bar. And I think that this is where fans kind of said to, I don't know, Dark Cash in the chat earlier said, has it always been Super Bowl or bust the last 2 seasons? And I think that this is the reason why it went to Super Bowl or bust. We finally got our taste, right, at winning the division. 12-5 in 2023. Backed it up 15-2 in 2024. We won the NFC North twice and even locked up the NFC North's 1 seed. Just so happened that we flamed out in the divisional round because we didn't have a team. Our roster was depleted. And I know Brad says it's an excuse, right? These are excuses. You still got to be able to show up and play no matter what. Look, that's the GM speak. Deep down, he knows damn well you couldn't have done anything else. You just couldn't. Your hands were tied. Anything short now, I think, of the big game is why we're having this conversation tonight. Anything short of a Lombardi, at least appearance, let alone a win, has to be 2025. We won the league twice. We got the NFC North's 1 seed. So we know that we can do it. And we know that we can do it with the guys that have been on this roster. And matter of fact, the roster that we have today is almost identical to last year. And we got better. So if we could do it then, we can definitely do it now. That's why 2025 is actually Super Bowl or bust right there. So thoughts right there on the back-to-back division wins, finally putting that Super Bowl or bust tag on 2025.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was thinking earlier today how last year I was like, man, I want the number 1 seed in the NFC, right? But you take the steps. I wasn't thinking Super Bowl the year when they beat the Rams in the playoffs, because you win a playoff game first. You can take these steps. And then I was thinking today, like, man, I don't really care if the Lions get the number 1 seed in the NFC this upcoming year. It's not the end all be all. It's nice if you get it. But to me, it was there was a time when winning the division was such a crowning achievement. It was something that was a pursuit. Now it's okay, you've done that. And that's obvious with years and years and years of futility and not being a good organization. That's not what the Lions are anymore. This is a very well-run organization with smart people at the controls. And I think that right now, this season is every single player, the focus should be one thing: Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl. That's it. Wherever you fall in the standings, just get there however you have to get there. And I think winning the Super Bowl obviously is every team's goal, but there's only a handful of teams I feel like that really have a shot to win it. Maybe a little bit more than a handful, but
it's a good point, right? Get there how you can get there, right? I think that's a valid point. It's win and get in, and once you're in, it's a brand new season. The playoffs are a brand new season. Like, it's a different set of rules now. Now it's lose and go home, right? Win and you stay. But it's a brand new season, and you just have to get to the doorstep and be able to walk through that one time. And a few miracles happen. The ball bounces a few times for you, and you're able to take it the distance. This next one probably should have been after number 3, and that's talking about other teams and how they're kind of flaming out at the wrong time. And that's the 49ers. Their core, their prime age core They've hit 30, right? So they're off the cliff. They're at the 30 cliff, if you will. The Eagles reset after the coordinator exodus, and then Dallas faces expiring deals. You got the Dak Prescott, disaster going on. The AFC remains brutal, but Detroit has the clearest path of any contender in the conference this season. The clearest path. The NFC landscape, in my opinion, is wide open right now. The NFC North is definitely the hardest division, in my opinion, in the NFC. It just is for me. It doesn't mean that, 2 or 3 of those teams could make it to the Super Bowl. It's just a brutal division. It's a brutal division to win. I'm not saying that it's the best division in football. I'm just saying it's a brutal division to win, and whoever wins that division should have a legit shot at taking it all the way. So, between the Lions going back-to-back division titles, their guys are in prime age, where they are right now with the roster. You've got the last year of Goff's friendly cap money, and now you've got the NFC landscape that is just wide open. The Lions are in a prime position. So how do you view, I guess, the other divisions right now? And, I understand the Lions have the third toughest schedule. I'm actually less concerned about it as, the days kind of wane on here. But how do you view now when you look at the Lions and the shape that we're in compared to some of these other teams? The Eagles lost quite a few players last year after winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, as is normal when a team wins a Super Bowl, that's, all those guys are like, all right, all you other teams come get me. I just won a Super Bowl. I've got my value's never been higher. I don't know what the average percentage of returning players is on an NFL team. That's something I'm going to have to look up and do a bit on. We've talked a little bit about.
Sorry, what was your question?
The average percentage of returning players an NFL roster has year to year. My thought is, and you and I have talked about, man, the schedule, but I mean, let me ask you something. If the Lions play a road game, are you thinking, they're probably not going to win
this year?
Yeah, because they're on the road. No, they went on last year on the road. It's one of these things. It's the way Dan Campbell leads. It's like, put the ball down, tell us where, we'll play anybody, anytime, any place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but just like you said, when you look at it, if I said, okay, the Lions are a popular pick in the NFC, but then who, I mean, even last year, I wasn't taking Philadelphia maybe as seriously as I should have at the start of the year. But there's not that clear-cut team where you're like, that's who the Lions are going to have to get through. As you said, it's a brutal division. I would make the argument that it is the best division in the NFL. It's going to be tough to get there. But yeah, I don't look at the Niners as like that's who you're going to have to go through to get there. You're going to have to. I'll give Philly respect because they're Super Bowl defending champions. But the Lions are bringing back everybody that produced on the team last year, just about everybody. And I think they're going to be motivated and hungry because of the way Dan Campbell leads. And you get all those guys back, the culture's there. Like, they got to be showing up to training camp like, man, it's been a long time coming. Let's play some ball.
Speaking about divisions, which is kind of, number 5 here, what we're talking about, I guess when I look around the league, it's a little bit different to me. I get that you think that the NFC North is the best division in football. I mean, I think it's a very strong division. It's just hard to really, when you look at, I'll just look at it this way. The AFC East, okay, you have the Bills. So that's not the strongest division. But the Bengals, when they're on their game, and the Steelers, who've been, perennial playoff team, and then the Ravens, the AFC North is a really tough division. AFC South, yeah, you got, again, it's just like the Bills. You got one team. You got the Texans. AFC West is similar to the AFC North. You've got the Chiefs and the Chargers, but now you have the Broncos. You have 3 legit contenders in that division. And then when you look on the other side, into the NFC, the Eagles and the Commanders, I mean, that is the NFC East, an extremely tough division. The Cowboys used to be scary, at times, but not so much. So they have 2. The NFC South, you got the Bucs, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Saints. So you got the Bucs. Not a scary division. The NFC South has been terrible. The NFC West, yeah, you used to have the 49ers and the Rams. Now you just have the Rams, in my opinion. the Seahawks and the Cardinals have a long way to go. So I put the NFC North, the Lions, Vikings, the Packers, and the Bears as, in the top 3 divisions in the league. I would say they're teetering at number 2. I would say that the Chiefs division is probably number 1. You could make an argument for all 3 of them, but it's probably an interesting topic for another day. I don't know.
Yeah, that is. I've got a coworker and good friend, Jeff Gaylor, that is a big Denver Broncos fan. We were talking about it today. Like, I think Denver's going to be good this year. But yeah, you're right. I just look at the NFC North. If Caleb Williams is good and if JJ McCarthy is good, it's going to be a bloodbath for all 4 of these teams. That's how I feel. But I'm excited that, I'm a fan of the Lions of all these teams in this division. But yeah, I mean, that's what we love about the NFL, man. There's good teams every year. There's teams that missed the playoffs last year that are going to make it this year. We'll sure to do a segment on, that. Who do you think those teams will be? But yeah, I think the NFC North is brutal as it gets.
You're not lying. It's definitely brutal. Big shout out to Hassanin Mahdi in the house. Good morning, or it's probably evening there, I think. I don't know. Good day, sir. Good day. Will Carter, good comment. Feels like the window is just open for the Lions and should be good for the next 2, maybe 3 seasons. And then we really get to watch Brad doing the big ball and shell rabbit out of the hat roster roulette magic show. Good statement, man. It's well said there. I would say the same thing, that it's wide open right now.
The thing I can say for sure, I've talked about it a lot on the show, is when I discovered Rocked On Detroit Lions, I go back and listen to a lot of the older shows. What I can tell you guys, I'm sure all of you that are already here are well aware, but Will, I feel like, has a very good pulse for what's really happening with the team. So as we go through whatever happens this season, win, lose, whatever roster changes are happening over the next few years, this is the place to be, because I think I know you are going to get the truth, the honesty, and the transparency right here with Rocked On Detroit Lions.
I thought I had this thing fixed. Whatever. I'm going to have to order a new clip. Okay, next up, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. Both of the Lions star coordinators, they're gone, right? Did momentum cash out? Excuse me. It's that time of night, 8:46 p.m. Did, this hot streak that we had in having these 2 coordinators, did it just, run its course? They cashed out, went to different divisions, while Benedict Arnold stayed in the same. But Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, they were poached. Dan Campbell rebuilt with John Morton and Calvin Shepard. New systems often need a year. We've seen that with some of the other teams around the league. If they succeed immediately, which I'm expecting that they will, I think that Detroit must ride this first wave, all the way, right, before the other opponents catch up. And I think that's a big statement for me, right? You have, all these other teams that are ready to chomp at your heels. I think the Commanders are probably going to fall off a little bit this year. I think the Eagles are going to fall off a little bit this year. But I think the Bears are coming. I think the Vikings are coming. And I think the Packers are coming. It may not be 2025, but they're coming. And if we don't ride this wave this year, if we're having success all the way, then you might start to say that our chance came and went. Because the minute that those teams start catching our heels, the game's up, right? It's going to be really hard. What do you think? Do you think that, I guess let me rephrase the question. If the Lions have success immediately, do you think that we need to ride it all the way this season? It's kind of like at your own peril, right? If you don't, you're probably never going to have another opportunity as this easy again, even though it's not going to be easy.
Right. Because when are you going to have successive draft classes as good as the string that Brad Holmes had, these, his first 3, especially that third one, when we got Gibbs and Laporta and Branch and Campbell, and The tough thing is, when you're talking about that, giving these, you remember what it was like when the Lions went to Green Bay last game of the season, and earlier that day, the Seahawks beat the Rams, or Rams beat the Seahawks, whichever it was. So the Lions go into that game knowing no matter what happens, they're not going to get into the playoffs. But what did Dan Campbell say? We just don't want them to go, them being Green Bay. You remember that feeling of being like, man, we can hang with these guys. We're, like you said, we're nipping at their heels. Now we started to get that hope. We started to feel like, man, Green Bay is not this Goliath. This ain't David and Goliath. So that's all these other teams need, is starting to feel like, you've got a chance. And then for the Lions fans, these last few years have been phenomenal. But I think that's obviously because of the years that led up to it. If hopefully now this is the standard and the norm, not 15 wins every year, but perennial playoff team. If that was what you were used to, and then you just fall short, you're going to look back in 3, 4, or 5 years and say like, well, yeah, those were fun years, but we didn't win it all. And that's what I think you remember. I couldn't tell you. I remember all those shorts or Jim Caldwell teams that went 9-7, and they had all these amazing comeback wins. But the only reason I remember it is because of the way they were winning games. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you went to Seattle, you got beat in the playoffs, didn't really even put up a fight. So it's kind of all for naught. The standard's got to be more. It takes more. It's the evolution, that kind of what you were talking about. And I think that it's fair to expect that, and to want that, both I hope as a Lions player and then, as a Lions fan. It's you do kind of have to capitalize, because these other teams in this division, especially, just as you said, Will, they aren't going anywhere. They're going to be around. They're good teams.
I apologize. I got the case of the yawns tonight. Okay, so let me expand on that. To your point, these other teams are coming for you. These other coaches are coming for you. And we're looking at Dan Campbell now. This is year 5. You're talking about a coach that, what has he posted? 38 wins already, 2 division titles, a number 1 seed, but 0 Super Bowl appearances through 4 seasons. Now, a little bit of a different story here, because he came from a roster that literally had nobody in 21, where your 6th and 7th round picks are starting. Kind of the same in 22. Almost everybody's starting that you drafted. 23 was a little bit different, right? Maybe half of your draft picks started. 24 different yet. And now 25, it's hard to find room on the roster. So when I think about coaches that are entering year 5 or have gone through 5 years and don't win a Super Bowl, they start to get judged harshly historically. Like that's been the motto, if you will, that coaches start to get razzed a little bit. The media starts to talk too much. And I also thought about another guy, and that was Marty Schottenheimer. Right? Marty, widely respected, successful NFL coach. Kind of like the Mike Tomlin case.
You mentioned Sean McVay the other day, even when we were talking about.
But I mean, he's won a Super Bowl, so.
But before, because when you mentioned him, it was he was trading Goff because it was like he needed a scapegoat.
That was his scapegoat, or
right.
his scapegoat was, it had to be the quarterback's fault. It was all Jared Goff's fault, right?
Yep.
So
Exactly.
Thinking about like Marty Schottenheimer, widely respected as, an NFL coach, never won a Super Bowl, a very impressive career, 200 regular season wins, but he only won 5 of 18 postseason games. His teams often performed well in the regular season, and then they kind of fell short in the playoffs. And I don't think that's going to be Dan Campbell. I think that Dan is going to be the coach that brings that Lombardi trophy home. I really do. But when you start to look at the evolution, right, of the team and where it's headed, you're going to be highly judged if you're not making the playoffs because of the team that Brad has given you. You have to perform. Same thing for Jared Goff. Like, you've been given an amazing offense and an offensive line. You have to perform. I think Jared Goff is under a microscope more now than ever before. But the same thing for Dan Campbell. So the question is, what are the whispers going to be if the Lions don't make the Super Bowl this year about Dan Campbell?
It is a great question, and you can almost hear it now. Goff's not the guy, and is Campbell has his magic worn off, right?
Yeah.
It was easy to go for. I remember the game his first year at SoFi. I mean, they're doing all kinds of trick play, kind of like he's playing Madden because he doesn't have anything to lose, and it's cool at the time. The cool thing I love about what Campbell's done is to continue to. I'll never forget, man, the Green Bay game last year at home. They could have kicked a field goal, probably make it, but then Green Bay's got the ball back with 30 some odd seconds, and he just gives it to Montgomery for a half a yard, and then drains the clock, and then just kicks the game-winning field goal. Like that type of stuff it takes guts. And if the Lions, if that doesn't translate to the ultimate prize, winning it all, people start to, maybe they're going to say, oh, well, hell, they were doing that after the NFC Championship. He's too aggressive. He's coaching too recklessly. I don't think he is. They won 15 games last year. But at some point, you got to take the next step. It's not good enough just to, Goff, you came to Detroit, you turned things around, and I'm sure if he was in the room talking with us right now, he'd say that he's never been more motivated to win. Everything he's done up to this point, it's all stepping stones to get to this point with this opportunity and this coaching staff and this narrative to go win it all. That's what it is. And if they don't, of course, the head coach, and the quarterback are going to get the blame.
Agree. I mean, I hope it's not the case. I mean, I think that you have to give Dan Campbell a little bit of grace, right? And I think that Sheila, will. I don't think that she's going to pull the rug out from underneath him or Brad, but they're signed through, I believe, 2027. And you would think that something is going to have to happen by then, or it's going to be, who are you going to sacrifice? If you're going to stick around, you being Dan Campbell, quarterback's got to go. Someone's got to go. Like, it's not working, then someone's going to have to go. And I think that's what happens, over time is the Sean McVay deal. It's going to, I think it'll be done a little bit more respectfully, but I think that's what kind of happens. So, Will Carter, to answer your question, yes. Philadelphia lost both their coordinators. They came back in 24 with a rookie at offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, and won the Super Bowl. And then now he's the head coach, obviously down, in Dallas, I believe. So, yeah, the credibility of Dan Campbell, how many seasons can he go with just winning football games, winning a couple of playoff games, but not getting to the big dance? I would say that we are now starting to enter prime Dan Campbell era. So where I said it was the prime core age for performance for the team based on their age, it's now the prime for Dan Campbell. He's been doing this now, will be his 5th season. I think it's time for him to take that next step in the evolution of his career too. This next one's a big one. This one also hurts, but I'm so happy for the guy. And that's Frank Ragnau. How big does Ragnau's retirement narrow the offensive line window? When we think about a window, again, you think about positional groups. You have an elite wide receiver room. You're up against it with contracts. You have an elite offensive line. Now you just lost one of the 3 staples, right? You had all 3 pillars on that offensive line stable. Left tackle, right tackle, and center, the 3 most important positions on the offensive line. You could have stuck anybody almost in there at guard to a degree. They would have done okay. And that's kind of what we saw happen. Yet, not anymore. Not with Frank gone. The interior of that offensive line is in trouble if they can't get it together. So, all-pro center Frank Ragnau finally retires. The dude finished 4 career starts short of 100. And it's just gotta be, it's gotta pull at you, man, that he just needed one more season. Lions hired some stopgaps. Tristan Colon, brought in Tate Rowledge during the draft, and they're going to hold down the fort. You throw them in the ring with Christian Mahogany and others that the Lions have brought in, last season. How does this affect the offense in 2025?
The pressure shifts to every other player, right? Where I mean, if I'm Jared Goff, I'm like, I've got to have control over this whole operation. And the thing with me, with the coordinators, they're bringing back guys. I mean, Kelvin Shepard was groomed to be in this role. John Morton's got familiarity with the team. You can have these really good coordinators, but if you don't have the talent on the field, what does it equate to? I think that the players are going to obviously feel responsibility for their performance. They know what their objectives are. They know what their tasks are. They know what their assignments are. And yeah, man, losing Frank Ragnau that's tough, but we'll see. Maybe, I'm never going to expect a rookie to do the things that Jahmyr Gibbs did, that Brian Branch did, that Sam Laporta did. But if you can find, if you start to see some play out of Tate Ratledge this year or something, then you just, you go back to Brad Holmes just doing it yet again. And I think that they carefully vetted this out. No doubt in my mind that they knew that it wasn't just a possibility, but even a likelihood that Frank was going to hang it up. And so now everybody's got a shoulder to load. Everybody's got to take more on, and be responsible. It can't be an excuse. You can't say, "Man, we would have won it, but Frank retired."
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great statement. Where you said the pressure kind of gets spread out, right? I think that's a great statement. You know, the guys next to you, where you were on that offensive line, they're the ones that are going to shoulder that load, as you just said. They're the ones that are going to be feeling that pressure now, because all eyes are on them, and every defense is gunning for them, whether they like it or not. Every defensive coordinator right now is licking his chops, saying, Frank's gone. We either got a rookie or we got a guy that's a little bit old who doesn't play a lot of center that's going to be hiking the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Blitz every down, overload over top of the center with a linebacker. I can see it now.
Put pressure
I can see it now.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That's how they're going to try to beat him, because, every quarterback struggles with the blitz, but we know Goff is, you pressure him, and he that's when he has his worst performances. So
sometimes, like, Goff was one of the best quarterbacks under pressure by getting the ball out. I mean, he had one of the fastest get off times, time to throw under pressure, but there was some times where pressure was too immense, too quick, that he would take a bad sack. But at the end of the day, I still think he did a great job, considering.
That is a good.
You know what I mean? So he did some things really good, and then you have a couple of things that are really bad. You can't be perfect. I mean, he was darn near perfect with a lot of things that he did last season, but he had a few hiccups, as every person's going to have, as every player is going to have throughout their career. A couple of things in the chat. So Trey said the SL fans are going to come out in droves screaming, "We told you so." And that is talking about the Lions not winning a Super Bowl soon, or if Dan Campbell just becomes a perennial, regular season winner. At least Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl, but after that and before that, he's just been a regular season winner. I don't know how early it was in his career that he won a Super Bowl, but I would hate to say, if Dan Campbell was able to do that, I don't remember how many years it took, would we be mad? Would we be mad if Dan Campbell was a 20-year coach in Detroit? That would be incredible. And, maybe we only win one Super Bowl. I wouldn't be happy about only winning one, but at least we won one. Finally, right? Next subject, number 9 for me. This is a lot of research that I've been putting together for a long time. And I probably should have saved some of it, but top 3 cap space. It allows a mid-season splash. Lions have $40 million free right now. Brad Holmes can still add a disgruntled veteran. Think T. Higgins type rental, right? At the trade deadline, but Higgins is signed now, so he's not going anywhere. But a luxury pick, right? A luxury grab. Something that you can get this year that vanishes in 2026. One, because you won't have the money in 26. I'm calling it right now. This is the year that Brad Holmes is going to go after a luxury pick or a luxury ad at some point in the season, whether it's the trade deadline or before, And I'm hoping it's not going to be because of injury. But I think that this is the year that Brad is going to finally say, you know what? It's time. Because I'm not going to be able to do that next year. Now, whether that's adding, Zadarius Smith back to this team, or maybe it's a bigger play. Maybe it's adding a Trey Hendrickson if the Bengals, aren't doing well, if they don't get a deal worked out, if we need an end. I don't necessarily feel like we do. To wind back in the chat a little while ago, I think it was J-Rod that was mentioning something about Davenport. I'd be interested to know, J-Rod, where you heard this, that Davenport is mad at the cheap shot. Are you talking about the arm grab by Paris Johnson and the double chop? And then J-Rod said he busted his butt, went from 285 to 300, then down to 270. And he's ready to prove why he is a force. So be interested to know where you heard that. That's interesting because when he came to his press conference, when he was back with the team, he said that it wasn't a cheap shot. It was just football. But at the same time, I don't think that publicly he's going to come out and say that because they would get in trouble, right? They're not going to publicly call anybody out. It's just part of protocol in the NFL. That's why you don't hear players talking about other coaches or the refs or this, that, or the other thing. They're not really allowed to without a fine, right? So anyway, $40 million. Brad makes a splash move, but I also feel that he could roll a lot of that over to next year given the cap situation. If he's going to make a splash play, it's this year. So what do you think about a splash play in 25?
Yeah, it's nice to know that if it's needed, it's there, right? They've got the means. It's one of those things. It's like I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it kind of thing, where Brad Holmes has said, I've got to have some money set aside for a rainy day. And I think you're right. This would be the year. The culture's one more year established. Players want to play in Detroit. And now, especially depending on the timing of it. But if you said something on a stream that I think you were doing either this morning or yesterday, where you said, I think it's going to take those first 4 weeks to kind of really get the team rolling. But let's say the Lions are 4-2 or 5-1 after 6 games. Man, any team that's just a player that wants to win. Imagine Zadarius Smith last year. You go from Cleveland to Detroit, like you just like that. Now all of a sudden you're on a team that's got a shot to go win the Super Bowl. The player is going to be motivated, so you're going to be able to vet out who's available, what your needs are, and then you can possibly even overpay a little bit if you needed to bring the right person in. Obviously, they're going to be very judicious with who they would bring in to the locker room.
I think that they'll probably over vet it a little bit. To your point, I think that they would over vet and make sure that it's a right fit. But at the same time, I don't think that they're going to be concerned about having future years on a contract. I think it's all in. So they don't want to keep somebody around for next year that they know that this is just an all-in play, for one season. So next up, a little bit more facts and analysis about the team. I'm still wondering if anyone wants to call in. And by the way, this morning was when I was talking about the 4 weeks. I think it's going to take 4 weeks for this team to really get rolling, partly because we have, new coordinators. We're going to have somewhat of a new offensive scheme, largely staying the same, but there's still going to be some wrinkles that are going to be installed. And I think it's going to be, a slow development, without a doubt, but
I can't wait for the season to start to go through that. I can't wait to have the morning shows to break it down, win or loss, especially, I don't want to lose games, but especially if there's a loss, we can come back in, we talk it through and see, it's easy to kind of ride the wave last year, just win after win after win. But, that may not be the case this year. So we'll have to, it's going to make it fun, man. It's going to be a great, great season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun season, too. I think that there's going to be a lot of ebbs and flows to this season that will definitely be interesting, I guess, is where I'll leave that. Now that I have the right logo up, we can move on to this 10th part. So why 25 is the moment? Why 2025 is the season? Well, 1 year mercenaries, right? We talk about mercenaries, in wartime or, in time of need. You need someone to go out there and do some dirty work for you. Well, the Lions have some mercenaries on the squad. Marcus Davenport is on a 1 year deal. Zadarius Smith potentially coming back. Avonte Maddox, Rock Ya-Sin, DJ Reed. Now, he's not a 1 year mercenary, but this is his first year in Detroit. Short-term deals for some guys and, longer-term deal for DJ Reed, which, when I look at the Lions roster and I look at who's around, I haven't done my 53-man post OTAs, which I'll probably do next week. But we have some 1 year mercenaries that we need to take advantage of. Whether or not Zadarius Smith comes back, we still have Marcus Davenport. I think Avonte Maddox has a high likelihood of making this roster. And Rock Ya-Sin is just a very intriguing pick to, maybe keep around on the practice squad. But all of the 1 year guys that we have in-house, the Grant Stewarts, the Roy Lopez, those are the guys that really need to have an impactful season this season, and they need to have one right away. So I think that this season is more important simply because of the way that the roster has been put together in a way that the Lions have a lot of outs next year, and they won't have a lot of guys. Now, next year, I think we actually have the most guys under contract that we've had in a long time, but they're not going to have a lot of these guys that, have some good experience that you're getting really good deals on. If Marcus Davenport proves to have a really good season, he's going to go get a decent contract from somebody. And it's probably not going to be the Lions. This next one, number 11, so we've got just 4 more to go. Hutchinson's comeback impact. Detroit Lions tied for 23rd in sacks in 24. However, I don't agree with that number, even though it is what it is. I'd rather it say the Lions were within earshot of the Chiefs and the Eagles, because the Chiefs were right in the same boat. Like, they were right in the middle of the pack with the Lions when it came to sacks. I don't care about the sacks. They were 3rd in pressure rate last season, with 3rd and 4th and 6th and 7th string guys. 3rd. Now, Aiden was gone in week 6. So the balance of that season, the Lions finished 3rd in pressure rate. Who are you kidding that we didn't have a deep defense? So a healthy Hutch. If Smith comes back, great. Davenport gives them a top 5 pressure ceiling this season, in my opinion. Now, injuries are always a problem in the NFL. We also have this guy named Ahmed Hassanin, who I think is this season's breakout candidate potential. I think that, and I'm not just saying that because we have a relationship with Corey. I think that he has some serious breakout potential. He has to get the snaps. I think he's going to have high production and efficiency stats. If you remember James Houston and what he did in his first season, that he gets a crack at it. I mean, he flew off the page and onto the screen with 2 sacks against Buffalo on his first game in. And he only played like 6 snaps. That's going to be your Ahmed Hassanin this year. He might have a lower snap count to start until you can't keep him off the field. But I think that this is the impact of Aiden Hutchinson's comeback season. They're going to want to get Aiden some rest, which is going to open the window for some of these other guys to get some snaps. But how important is it for you to see Aiden play as well as he was last year, or at least 80% as well as he was last year for the Lions to be able to go the distance?
Well, I feel like 80% would probably be acceptable, maybe through those first 4 weeks, kind of that barometer, and maybe that's part of why you gave that specific timeline. But I think from there, man, I want to see Aiden Hutchinson come back and be like, guys, because I thought about it a lot last year. how would it have felt? Yeah, he's happy the team's winning. Of course he is. But it would be really tough to be like a number 2 draft pick from Michigan. You're one of the best, youngest players on the team. You're one of the leaders of the team. And then you go down and they keep winning without you. You kind of would naturally start to be like, man, like, do they really need me? You got to come back this year and show, like, I'm Aiden Hutchinson. I'm one of the best players in the league. I have expectations of him to be, at 90%. I want him to have, obviously, his best season. I understand he's coming off a brutal injury, but he's one of the best players on the team. I need to see him play like it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think that we need to see Aiden back to Aiden form. However, I think it's going to be less necessary for the Lions to win football games. There's a reason why they brought in Tyleik Williams. You heard Brad Holmes say it again multiple times, but he said it again this morning when we reviewed the Green Light podcast. The path to the quarterback is the defensive tackles. Without the defensive tackles, it does not matter who you have outside. It really doesn't. You have to have a complete team for everything to work. Otherwise, you've got this guy trying to do this guy's job and that guy trying to do this guy's job. And before you know it, everybody's heads are spinning. And there goes the ball carrier for 40 yards, right? There goes the quarterback for a first down. So you need to have that interior settled so that the guys around them, that front seven can do their dirty work.
Yep. I think that's very well said. And just like you said, there doesn't need to be a statistical barometer that Hutch has to hit to win football games. If he's playing and the Lions are winning football games and they're disrupting the other team's quarterback, then to me, I would say, okay, he's doing exactly what he needs to be doing. But I think it's a great distinguish that you make between the two, that it's not necessary that he comes back and leads the league in sacks for the Lions to take the next step.
Gotcha. So this next one, you've got the Warren Sharp ranking the Detroit Lions 2025 slate. It's the third hardest schedule. How impactful is it that this season's schedule strength really screams urgency, right? The Lions' schedule has been getting harder and harder and harder. The team has been getting better and better and better. So at what point does, 2023, you had a really good football team, schedule is down here, right? Well, that flipped in 24. But in 24, what you saw was a really good football team didn't give a shit about the schedule. Like, we ran through them and we were hurt. Now it's like, okay, still a really good football team. They just got way better, off the charts, like off the page. And now that schedule is starting to catch up. You're playing first place schedules. And that does catch up to you, right? You're not going to win as many games because you're playing the best of the best that the NFL has to offer. You're not able to take advantage, of the Titans every year. It's just not, you're not going to get it every year. So the toughest first 11 game road gauntlet league wide. Let me rephrase that. I don't know how I wrote this. Warren Sharp ranks the 2025 slate the third hardest with the toughest first 11 game road gauntlet league wide. In other words, throughout the first 11 games, the Lions have the toughest road games league wide, if that makes sense. Surviving that and still hosting a playoff game means that they're likely peaking, right? I think that the Lions are starting to peak if they're able to get through that. And that also means that squandering that peak, right? That prime core, right? That prime age core, you squander that, you squander the peak of the team. That's when that proverbial window starts to shrink, especially with everything else going on. You've got, you have the salary cap, the big contracts next season. And then you have this peak of the team and they're peaking right now, right? I mean, this team's really starting to come together. So I guess the urgency, how would you place the urgency right now based on the schedule? and the teams that the Lions are having to play and where this team is starting to peak.
Yeah, it's great points. I mean, I like, the comment that you made, and we were talking about it on the phone a couple weeks ago about the schedule this year. But then you look at it and say they went on the road and won every game last year. I'm not expecting that happens again, but that says something for a team to go undefeated on the road. And it's not, Ford Field, that was one thing I used to always lament was how many times the Lions lost games at home. I'm like, man, you got to have a place where it's like you can't just walk into Ford Field and be like, we're walking out of here with a win. And if you do win, you got to leave like bruised and battered. It's got to be Ford Field has to be a place where you defend your turf. But I think the Lions aren't going to run from the competition. I think it's exactly like you said. Now, there won't be a 42-6 blowout probably like there was this year. And they're probably, hell, they even did it to Dallas last year. That was the mindset of the team where they're just in there throwing stuff to offensive linemen. They're just toying with them. Might not be the case this year, and that's okay. I don't care if the Lions win every game 3-0. Field goal with Bates right at the end. Whatever it takes to win the games might be ugly. You said it on the show this morning. You might not win every game by 21. But just win. Whatever it takes, just win.
Yeah, and to that point, now last year I said that the most important number was what?
20, 18, 19, 20, somewhere right in that range. 20.
It was 20. Yep. The most important number was 20. And
20,
that was making sure that your opponent doesn't score 20 points. And the Lions did it. That's why they won so many football games.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what I have to do to get some of the things that I say out there because no one else is saying these things. I've been the one saying them, and they've been exactly right. And I just wish more people would hear it because maybe there would be less people on this SOL train. Mm-hmm. If they actually understood what the Lions were actually doing and how good they were doing it with no defense, you wouldn't be as worried as a lot of people are. This next one. This one's crazy to me. Now, the number's a little bit skewed to me, but I came up with 10 new assistants that arrived this winter or spring, if you will, in the coaching staff. 4 new coaches, 10 new assistants. And I just got to put it plainly. If the Lions succeed again this year, we're going to lose more. I think that this is going to be a train that is like, next stop is, there you go, here's your new team every year. Like, thank you for joining the Lions. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's that kind of tree now. So if the Lions have a ton of success, I'm going to call it the brain drain of 2025. Is it gonna worsen? And the brain drain, what I mean by that is the brain of this team is all the coaches. It's all the assistants. They're the brain. And if they keep winning and having success, we're going to lose more. How do you feel that'll impact this team after this season? And that gives more of emphasis as to why it's Super Bowl or bust in 2025.
Yeah, that's a great point. You remember what Penei Sewell said about Hank Fraley. He said, I told Hank if he retire, or what did he say? If he leaves, I'm retiring. Obviously it was tongue in cheek. He was joking, but these personal relationships, man, everybody associated with the Lions last year had a really good feel that this is our last go at it with Aaron Glenn and with Ben Johnson. But these position coaches, like obviously Penei Sewell was tongue in cheek when he said that, but there's some level of truth to it where he really values that relationship. It would be hard to start losing coworkers every year, especially the ones that you get along with and you have success with. It means something. And so, you hope that the culture is great. I'd imagine it's great vibes in Allen Park. And, winning cures everything. Winning makes everything feel good. It solves every problem. And if the Lions, just like you said, if the Lions have success, if you are a team that isn't good, where are you looking to go poach or get players from? Successful teams. Nobody better than the Lions, at least the last couple of years. So it's a tree that's going to be it's a well that'll be pulled from again for sure.
I definitely think so. And I like Will Carter's statement here, too. He says, you just got to make it into the playoffs, and then you have to turn up the heat at the right time to slam that proverbial puck in the net once and for all. I love it, man.
Great
I
comment.
love it. It's a
Will,
good
you should
statement.
call in. Will's
Yeah,
got
you
good
guys
talk.
got to start calling in. Like, you got a phone, you dial the number, and you get on the show, because now the show is just about done. I'm not going to take calls now. So the last two, franchise drought and the fan psychology. Yes, we have something to do with this. 0, count them, 0 Super Bowl wins, 0 Super Bowl appearances. Longest drought in the NFC since 1957, the last time we won a championship before they were Super Bowls. Now, after tasting this 15-win euphoria, obviously the fan base and the ownership maybe equate success with hosting the Lombardi only. That's it. That's why this segment is called Super Bowl or Bust. Anything else? Well, that's just not civilized, right? It's just time. I think it's time, but I think that the fan base is drunk on success. They're eating too many marshmallows, right? They can't let it just build. But kind of, when you think about it, we're kind of at that doorstep now that you go left, you win a Super Bowl. You go right, you go to the pits of hell. That's kind of where we're at. Because in 26, let me wind back to the beginning. In 2026, the cap window slams shut. Goff's friendly money ends. We're in this prime age core of performance with the players. And the NFL landscape is kind of wide open. That's going to get tighter. We lost some coordinators. We're bound to lose more assistants. Well, Campbell's credibility could be shot because he's going to be through 5 seasons and he still hasn't won the Lombardi after having a ton of success. I don't agree with that. You lost Ragnau. Who else is going to retire? We have top 3 in cap space this year. We'll be at the bottom of the barrel next year. You see how this is kind of all leading into Super Bowl or bust, right? We got these 1-year mercenaries on the squad, the 1-year prove-it deals. I call them contender deals. You've got Aiden Hutchinson's comeback. He only gets 1 because he's not allowed to get injured ever again. You got the strength of schedule. Well, it's getting harder and harder. And now you've got the franchise drought and the fan psychology that we have to do it this year. Riley, do we have to do it this year? If I didn't state any of those other reasons, what would you say?
Man, I don't know if you have to, because if they don't, where are we all going to be, next offseason? We're going to be right here. We're going to be doing this and getting and trying to think of ways and reasons why it could happen. But just on a standpoint of the talent on the roster, the financial makeup of the team, everything you've kind of spelled out, you cannot get much closer to winning a Super Bowl than the Detroit Lions are right now. Like, this is as close as you can get without having done it. Seems like a pretty good time to do it. So I think that I'm almost kind of getting nervous. Like, the pressure's on, but that's fine. That's fine. Pressure makes diamonds, and it means something's expected of you. So I think, Campbell said it in his press conference. He's like, say whatever narratives you guys want. We want it. He was inviting it. Bring it on, because I need that. That's what I need. Give me something to go in the locker room and tell these guys. And if you don't, he's a master motivator. I feel like he's going to get everybody lined up.
I've got one for Dan then. And he might like this one. Maybe I should send him a card.
This will be good.
So, like you just said, pressure makes diamonds, right? Well, now the big fad is these lab-created diamonds. So manufactured pressure creates diamonds. That's kind of a throwback to Aaron Glenn, manufacturing pressure on the defense. So you may not have the innate ability to just create pressure, but you're under pressure, but you have the ability to always manufacture pressure. They can create this in a lab, And that's kind of what the Lions have done. That's what Brad Holmes has done. He's been in the lab. He's been cooking away. And now finally, the 15th reason why it's Super Bowl or bust. This one's not as fun as the rest. It's the draft class. I'm sitting back and I'm looking at the roster and I'm looking at the draft class and I'm thinking, there's something different here. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around it a little bit. The draft class talent, it finally matches for the first time, I think, in the Campbell era. It matches the stars on the team. When you look, Tyleik Williams, right? It's headlined by Tyleik Williams. He's savvy, right? He's the next dancing bear like Aleem McNeil. He's actually like an exact replica, little heavier replica, but almost exact replica, but better. Imagine that for a moment. Aleem McNeil has been a top 10 defensive tackle, and now you just brought one in that could be better. The draft class matches the stars on the team. So the roster roulette was just completed for Aleem McNeil. They went and got his contract done. It has now been backfilled by Tyleik Williams. See, Aiden's contract's not done yet. When his contract gets done, they're going to backfill it with another defensive end potentially. Why? Because we have a whole bunch of one-year wonders over there. A whole bunch of savvy UDFAs brought in, by the way. Didn't we bring in Lee? Was it Lee Fautanu, offensive tackle, offensive guard?
Yes, sounds like a familiar name.
Yeah, and Mason Miller. I have high hopes for him. I think that you're giving Detroit a very deep roster, a lot of good talent. Isaac Tesla, right? He's kind of mirroring Patrick, right? Tim Patrick, last year of his deal. And I think now you're going to see where Tesla is going to overtake that role next season. I don't think Tim Patrick's going to go anywhere this year. No, he also is pretty fast. He's not as fast as J-Mo, but he also is pretty fast too. J-Mo's the only odd man out. We don't really have a guy that mirror matches. Oh, wait, yes, we do. Dominic Lovett. Was he the 6th or 7th round guy? 6th round?
I think 7th.
Dominic Lovett is one of my dark horses, to make this roster in a way. No, I think he's a UDFA. Hold on.
I feel like he was a 7th pick. Ahmed was in 6.
I thought we drafted him. We did draft him 7th round. He's that mirror match to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's got amazingly quick feet. When I first started to see some of those rookie OTA videos leaking out, I'm like, oh my God. His feet are so good. Yeah, I haven't seen feet like that in a long time. So the depth finally matching the roster, and it's not just the draft class. It's the rest of the team. You've got stars and you've got immediate backups now at almost every position. I mean, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, they don't really have a direct, backup, but the other guy that we brought in from Georgia, who was I forget his name all the time.
Dan Jackson.
Yes, that guy. He could be an interesting piece. I'm not saying he's going to be our Cooper DeJean, but he could be an interesting piece back there. And I guess what I see Brad doing now is he's starting to build this team with depth that matches, like I said, it matches the stars, it matches the starters. And now when you have to rotate, you're rotating with a guy that's just as good or almost as good. And that is hard to do in the NFL. But we're going to be able to do it. Our backups, in my opinion, are not going to have any let off. The standard's the standard, boys. Oh, hey, how you doing, Mullet? You heard him. He's over that way. It is. The standard's a standard, boy. It is. I get it. So that's the last segment, the last topic. How do you feel that Brad Holmes has laid out this roster and the draft class, plucking these UDFAs, doing his work in season when he has to find guys on practice squads. Is it Super Bowl or bust? Give me your final 60 on this tonight.
Yeah, I think Brad Holmes has done about as well as you can do. And when you have a 4-year run akin to what he's just done, man, it's going to be heartbreak if you don't win a Lombardi after that. Because honestly, I mean, has he been perfect? No, but damn near close to perfect. And you're right. He just drafted 7 new players. And it was the first time where it's like, you're not maybe even going to get starters here. You're backfilling. And it's just like what you said. You can put in guys that are close to as talented as the guy that they're going in for. And so the depth is there. I think that this team's better than they were last year. I genuinely think that. Excuse me. And that's a question for the chat as well. The comments do you feel like this team is better than it was last year? Because we felt great last year at this time. I was so optimistic. Why would I be less optimistic this year? But I think it is Super Bowl or bust for the Lions this 2025 season.
So my final 60 is this simple, right? The Paper Tigers they're on the table, and we don't know what the team is just yet. Now, last year when I went to my first open training camp day, I think I missed Loyalty Day, but the first one that I went to, I walked out of there saying this is the best defense I've ever seen, and I said, man, it's so deep. It is so deep. And that rang true. And I knew right then and right there that we had something special. And that was just at training camp. They had pads on, so you could see a little bit more. So I won't be able to put my stamp of approval on it until I go to training camp. Hopefully with the Lions credential, because the NFL credential only gets me so far. So Super Bowl or bust, I would say that all of the reasons that I just gave, all of the credible analysis that I dug up, it kind of is. Because if you think that they're going to be able to rinse and repeat next year, it's going to be really tough because of the contract situations. It's going to be really tough because of the cap situation. Yeah, it's going to raise maybe 30 million. That's Jared Goff's contract. That's where it's all going, is his contract. Even if you were to roll over, let's say 20 of the 40 million that Brad has right now, well, that's signing your rookies. And you might have, 8 million left over, assuming that we're going to be picking dead last. So it has to be a bigger emphasis placed on Super Bowl or bust. And I think that also when you look at the opportunity that the Lions have with the new coaching staff, you need to take advantage of being different this year. You need to take advantage of not having Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn calling the same crap and their tendencies getting you in trouble. And at the end of the day, I know one thing will remain the same, and that is Dan Campbell on 4th down. So that's not going away. Anyway, good segment tonight. I'm glad that we got your whole technological situation fixed and won't have to worry about starting late. But yes, we're going to get back into doing some night shows. I'm going to work on a schedule this weekend and kind of, mash my brain together and think about what makes sense, because I do want to do at least three mornings a week right now until training camp starts, and then we'll kind of see where it progresses and then get in 2 nights a week. So kind of shifting the morning show 5 days a week to the night show 2 days a week, if that makes sense. I need to get the night group back in. I used to be on at 8 o'clock every night, like Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then it was like Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. And then it was like every night. And then I got away from it. So I need to get back to it. And who knows, maybe Riley will be doing it by himself at some point. So, all right, that's it for tonight. We'll see you guys back here probably over the weekend. I might have a chance to pop back in, but I'll definitely get some more videos done. Riley, stick around for 2 seconds. I got a couple questions for you when we're done. Next time, you guys got to call in, man. Like, share, subscribe. If you haven't already, please do it. Appreciate you guys. Have a good night. We'll see you guys in the next one.